welcome to another edition of Mango Peace Theatre. We are your hosts, Lady Carla, Lord Henry, Lady Lucy, Lady Scout, Lord Patrick, and Lady Felicia.
We are proud to present for your viewing and listening pleasure The Fourth Wise Man.
Today's performance is brought to us by the kids and youth of Calvary Lutheran Church.
Our featured play is based upon the story The Other Wise Man, originally written in 1896 by Henry van Dyke.
In 1997, Susan Summers retold Van Dyke's story in her book, The Fourth Wise Man, featuring illustrations by the artist Jackie Morris.
In this story, Summers echoes Van Dyke's main theme regarding Artaban, the fourth wise man, living and practicing the teachings of Jesus, as well as dedication to life of service.
Summers also shows how good can blossom from disappointment and how the power of faith can transform our lives.
Come with us as we follow Artaban on his journey to find the King of Kings.
And now the Fourth Wise Man.
In the days when Augustus Caesar ruled the Roman Empire and King Herod reigned in Jerusalem, there lived in the city of Ecbatana among the mountains of Persia a man named Artaban.
From the roof of his house, Abaton could look out over the rising battlements and see the hill where the empire's palace glittered above the city like a jewel. Around his house grew a wonderful garden filled with flowers and fruit trees, watered by the rushing streams and made musical by countless birds.
High above the tallest trees in the garden stood a tower, and from its window a lamp often shone late into the night. For it was here that Artaban worked. He was the follower of the faith of Zoroaster, studying the eternal struggle between the forces of good and evil, exploring the secrets of nature, above all, the secrets of the night sky.
Artaban had 3 friends, Caspar, Melchior, and Balthasar. For all 4 men, knowledge of the stars was the highest form of learning.
One spring night, the 4 companions were looking up to the sky when they observed a new star, shining more brightly than any they had ever seen.
Do you see that?
Isn't that a star?
It's the star. We've been studying the sky for so long. You know what that means?
He's born! He will be a great teacher. We should go find him.
The journey will be long since he's to be born among the Jews. Let us go and prepare.
They arranged to meet up together at a place far away by the Temple of the Seven Spheres in Babylon. From there, they would set out with a caravan of supplies and follow the star to Jerusalem to pay homage to the child.
Quickly, Artaban arranged his affairs. He sold his beautiful house with its fragrant gardens and said farewell to his old father. He bought 3 jewels, a sapphire, a ruby, and a pearl, to carry as a tribute to the newborn child.
Before dawn, even before the first bird had awoken, Arbaton went down to his stable, where Vasta, his favorite horse, stood saddled and bridled in her stall.
Good morning, Vespa. I see you're all ready for a long trip. We have to reach the Temple of the Seven Spears on time. The journey will be long and hard. I see you're a strong horse. We will ride late into the night and wake up early each morning. Look, Vespa, the new bright star is shining on us. At last I see the great walls of Babylon. We should be at the Temple of the Seven Spears in a few hours.
Artaban had traveled for the last 10 days and 10 nights, just outside the city walls. While trotting past a grove of date palms, Vasada whinnied and suddenly stopped. Lying in the shadow was a dark object. Artaban dismounted.
In the dim starlight, he could see the figure of a man lying across the road. He leaned down to touch the man's head. The man gave a ghostly sigh and clutched at Artaban's robe with long bony fingers.
Artaban knew this man needed help, but how could he stop tonight, of all nights? He raised his hands and prayed.
God of truth and purity, direct me to the holy path, the way of wisdom, which you know better than any mortal.
Then he fetched water, mixing it with some of the healing herbs that he always carried. Slowly he poured the liquid into the sick man's parched mouth.
Hour after hour, he poured the liquid a little at a time into the sick man's mouth, until the man's strength slowly returned.
Who are you? Why have you brought back my life?
I'm Aberton of Encapena. I'm going to Jerusalem to search for the one who's to be born King of the Jews. I dare not to stay with you any longer, for my friends are waiting and may depart without me. I will leave you with you the last of my bread and wine along with this potion and healing herbs.
May the God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob bless you and bring you peace. Now take heed, the Messiah will not be born in Jerusalem, but in Bethlehem of Judea. May the Lord watch over your travels, because you have had pity on me and saved my life.
It was already near dawn as Arbiton rode quickly across the silent plain. When he reached the temple of the seven spheres, he could find no trace of his friends. Then, by the edge of the terrace, he saw a little stack of bricks, and under it was a piece of parchment. He picked it up and read.
We must go now.
We can delay no longer.
Can find the King of Kings.
How can I reach Judea with no food and a tired horse? I must return to Babylon, sell my sapphire, and buy camels and food for the journey. I may never catch up with my friends. Only God knows whether I shall miss the King of Kings because I stopped to help a dying man.
So Artaban returned to Babylon, where he sold his glittering sapphire and his beloved horse Vasada, in exchange for a caravan of camels. Then he set out across the dreary desert.
Dark ledges of rock rose up around him like the bones of ancient monsters. Shifting hills of tread roses and skirts his road.
By day, a fierce heat blistered the earth so that no living thing could move.
By night, an icy chill fell over the dunes as jackals prowled and barked in the distance.
But he pressed on, faithfully following the bright new star until, as the sick man had told him, it shone above the village of Bethlehem in the land of Judea.
Artaban drew near the village, full of hope. Now at last he can give his pearl and ruby to the king.
How odd. The streets are empty. I wonder if the men have gone up the hill pastures to bring down their sheep. Excuse me, I'm searching for my 3 friends. I believe they may have been in your village recently.
Yes, 3 travelers from the east appeared a few days ago. They said that a star had guided them to the place where Joseph of Nazareth was lodging with his wife and her newborn son. They paid great reverence to the child, giving him many gifts. But the travelers have disappeared again. They say a man from Nazareth has fled to Egypt with his family. Now there seems to be a spell over the village. People even say that Roman soldiers are coming to enforce a new tax. This is why our men have driven our flocks and herds into the hills to escape it.
No, not our babies. Please don't. The soldiers of Herod, they are killing our children.
Where's your captain? Bring him to me.
You need to move. I have to check this house as King Herod has commanded.
I'm alone here. I will give you this jewel if you leave me in peace.
Artaban showed the captain the ruby. It glistened in his hand like the great drop of blood. The captain's eye widened with greed as he grabbed the jewel.
God of truth, forgive my lie. I have said something that is not true, to save the life of a child. And now 2 of my gifts are gone. Shall I ever see the King of Kings?
Because you have saved my little one, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord give you peace, now and always.
Artaban left with the women's blessings and made his way to Egypt, asking everywhere for news of the family from Bethlehem. But he could find no trace of them. By now, the star had vanished from the night sky, and Artaban had no idea where to continue his search. So he went to a wise old Hebrew rabbi to seek advice.
My son, our scriptures foretold that the King of Kings would be despised and rejected by humankind. He will not be found in a palace, nor among the rich and powerful. If you seek him, look among the poor and the lowly and the sorrowful and the sick.
The years passed and Artaban traveled on, always searching in the poorest places for the family from Bethlehem. He passed through towns where people were crying with hunger. He passed through cities where they were dying of the plague. And though he went and found no King of Kings to worship, he found many people to help. Wherever he went, he fed the hungry and he clothed the naked. He healed the sick and he visited those in prison.
From time to time he would stop and take out his pearl, the last of his gifts. As he gazed upon it, he would wonder whether he would ever meet the King of Kings.
33 years have passed since Arpatran had first seen the star and set out on his journey. Now, worn and weary, he traveled to Jerusalem to make one final search. He arrived during the season of the Passover, and the city was filled with people who had come for the feast.
But this year there was a strange sense of forbearing in the air. All around Artaban, sandals clattered and thousands of bare feet shuffled over the stones, and as the crowds were swept along to the Damascus gate.
What is happening?
Haven't you heard? There's going to be a crucifixion. 2 robbers are to be crucified.
Along with another man, a man called Jesus of Nazareth.
They say he has said and done many wonderful things. Everyone loves him greatly.
But the priests and the elders say that he must be killed because he calls himself the Son of God.
As the women continued their way, swallowed up the crowd, Artaban's heart thumped and his mind raced.
This must be the King of Kings, after all these years searching. Purpose, and I offer this my pearl to the Roman governor, Pontius Pilate. Maybe I can save the man's life.
He hurried toward the Damascus gate, but just beyond the entrance to the guardhouse, a troop of soldiers came down the street dragging a young girl with a torn dress and disheveled hair.
Have pity on me, save me. My father was a follower of Ziotrus, and I see from your dress that you're one of the same faith. Now he is dead, and I am to be sold as a slave to pay his debt. Please help me.
Artaban looked at the girl and trembled. For a third time he had to choose between keeping his jewel as a gift for the King of Kings or surrendering it to save a fellow human being. Yet he knew that to rescue this helpless girl would be a true deed of love.
Here's your ransomed daughter. It was the last of the treasures that I was keeping for the King of Kings, who is now to be crucified.
As he spoke, the sky grew black and tremors ran through the street, which heaved like someone in pain. Houses rocked, stones fell and crashed into the street. Dust clouds filled the air. The soldiers fled in terror, and Artaban and the girl found safety beside the wall of the guardhouse.
The earth gave one foul shudder, and a heavy tile fell from the roof, striking Artaban on the temple.
The girl bent over Artaban, fearing he was dead.
Through the darkness, very small and still, like music sounding from a distance, came a voice.
Peace be with you, Artaban. When I was hungry, you gave me food. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was in distress, you comforted me. As often as you did these things for the least of my children, you did them for me.
A calm radiance lit Artaban's face. His journey was at its end.
At last, I have found my king.
And this is where the book The Fourth Wise Man by Susan Summers ends. But our story does not end here. We can learn much from Artaban's tale.
Artaban spent his life searching for Jesus, trying to hold on to his riches, the sapphire, the ruby, and the pearl. So when he found a new king, he gave sent them as gifts. But along the way, he felt God calling to him to use those gifts in service to others.
When Artaban and his friends saw the star, they knew something great and wonderful was happening. They knew the star signified the birth of a new king, and from their studies knew this king would become a great teacher.
In that time period, kings were synonymous with wealth and power. They were born into families of privilege that had extended for generations upon generation. Kings were looked up from envies of masses.
But when Jesus was born, he was not surrounded by wealth, power, medical care, or even comfortable bedding and blankets. His birth was much more humble. He was wrapped in meager strips of cloth. His bed was a manger filled with straw. He was surrounded by the animals that shared that space, for there was no room in any of the inns within the town of Bethlehem.
His humble beginnings foreshadowed the life he was to live. Jesus did not come into this world to live among the rich and the powerful. He came to minister to the poor, the outcast, the unclean, the brokenhearted.
The way Jesus led his life should be an example of love for us, an inspiration to use our godly given gifts to serve others, to use our hands to do God's work.
As we reflect upon Artaban's journey to find Jesus, let us remember the words Jesus said in John chapter 15, verses 12 through 13. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends.
Thank you for joining us for the retelling of our story. I would like to close in prayer. God, good and loving God, we rejoice for the birth of Jesus, who came among the poor to bring the riches of your grace. Fill our hearts with your love Teach us patience and give us hope as we care for all those in need. Open our minds to know you, our hearts to love you, and our voices to sing and tell of your love. Help us live in the light of your Son, Jesus Christ, who lives and reigns with you and the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen.